Many companies talk about ESG, but what does that really mean? Today, I'm here with Qlik, and we're going to talk about not just the words, but the meanings and how companies can learn, how companies can be honest with themselves, and how companies can make meaningful change in environmental, social, and governance issues. Many companies talk the talk when it comes to ESG, but not all of them walk the walk. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that I like to ask companies, if they bring up the topic of ESG, exactly what they're doing. And that's what we're here talking with Qlik about. So Julie, you are responsible for a lot of this stuff. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do within Qlik.
Yeah, certainly. I'm Julie Kae. I'm the Vice President of Sustainability, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging at Qlik, as well as the Executive Director of Qlik.org. I've been at Qlik now over 15 years, so 15 of our 30-year history, and I have the privilege of managing a portfolio of programs that I feel makes our company the best company to be, as well as the world a better place.
And I love that because, as I said, when we come to events like this, it is very common for companies to talk about carbon neutral, net zero, diversity, things like that. And my thing is that I always like to kind of zoom in on that. And I like to say, okay, well, tell me more. And so let's do that. Let's talk a little bit more in detail. Now, one of the announcements that comes out of AWS reInvent is all around net zero applications running in the cloud, and Qlik is now moving to run in the cloud. So let's start with that, but I trust me, we're going to get a little deeper here. So first, tell us a little bit more about net zero.
Yeah, certainly. So as you know, a lot of your audience is well aware, organizations are really striving to set net zero targets to achieve the goals of the Paris Accords, right? We need to get our carbon emissions under control so that we can keep the world from warming to a certain level. So the private sector is actually taking this on with gusto. And for Qlik, we're doing the same, right? So we're looking at our operations, trying to minimize our own carbon footprint as much as possible. Our footprint from air travel, for example, or the electricity consumed within our offices. But really, most importantly, we think our greatest opportunity actually to have an impact is with our software. And that's really kind of inspired a lot of our customers to move their Qlik environments from running in on-prem data centers, right, which consume a lot of electricity, even when they're not being used, to the cloud. And running on AWS Cloud with the Qlik Cloud product is one way in which our customers can reduce their carbon footprint and actually be much more mindful with regards to the electricity consumed to power their analytical applications.
I think a lot of people are skeptical of cloud service providers, but Amazon is making real commitments here in terms of trying to at least have an option for customers to have a more carbon-friendly cloud offering. And this is especially true as a global company. But even without that, I think that you might be able to feel that maybe cloud computing is inherently more sustainable because of resource sharing, multi-tenancy, things like that. You don't have to spin up an entire rack of servers if all you need is just a little slice. And I think that this could help. But of course, a lot of companies are moving to the cloud, and a lot of companies are turning on, carbon-friendly things, or buying credits, or nonsense like that. But you're doing a lot more than this. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that Qlik is helping people understand the scope of their environmental impact.
Yeah, certainly. And a lot of it actually kind of comes from a program that I've had the privilege of managing at Qlik, which is a program that supports nonprofits as well as organizations like the United Nations to help them further their mission with analytics and data. And so one of the things that we do at Qlik is we want to learn and support, obviously, these organizations that are working on the front lines to measure and track progress for the global goals. And we do that with our software. And we take back a lot of learnings from that, right? So we work with the United Nations Secretariat, for example. We built a travel application for the UN Secretariat. It measures their carbon emissions from all the air travel of all of the employees of the UN Secretariat. And we then turn that into a demonstrable asset that all companies can go and see how is this particular organization measuring their carbon footprint from air travel, this particular use case, and actually not just measuring it, but looking to reduce it through better decision making. There are meeting planners, there are travel planners built inside this application, and it's used not only by the sustainability team, but also by the travel team at the UN, so that when people call to book actually a ticket, the travel team is well aware of the environmental data at their fingertips, so they can make a good decision about how to book the next travel that's needed.
I think that's a really good example of how companies can use data, or organizations can use data to understand the impact of the decisions that they're making. And another area that you talked about was with some of these nonprofits. One of the you can't fix things that you don't even understand. And some of these nonprofits have missions, environmental missions that you're supporting. So tell me a little bit more about how Qlik is helping to address some of the challenges of deforestation and water use and so on in the rainforest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one great example is our work that we've been doing with the Nature Conservancy in Brazil. And this is a number of years ago, actually, that this project actually was spun up and supported. Mm-hmm. But the Nature Conservancy in Brazil was very keen to understand the water availability in and around the Amazon. And so they had a lot of data, both from governmental sources as well as their own sources of measurement. But what do they do with that data, right? How do they get the private sector companies to understand that they have rights to water that exceeds the availability of water in and around the Amazon? Thus, if all of those companies actually took all of the water they had rights to, there would be no water left for anyone. And we're seeing this play out in several areas of the world, including the American West, where we're at right now, obviously in Nevada. So how can we solve that, right? So I'm working with the Nature Conservancy. We help them kind of understand their data by using Qlik software and kind of all the great capabilities that we have built inside our software, and married that to the data that was provided by the private sector partners to understand and have a conversation. So now when these parties actually come to the table, they can have a better understanding about how this resource, this very precious resource, needs to be shared and managed in order for water to be accessible for everyone. We have a similar example with greenblue.org here, which is a nonprofit based in Virginia that does the same thing on forest data. They work with the United States Forest Service, pulling data on kind of milling and as well share that with the private sector partners that they have. So again, these private sector organizations can understand whether or not the paper products that they're purchasing are actually in fact coming from sustainable forestry practices.
And this is something where Qlik is actually donating software, donating support to these organizations, these nonprofits, as a way to basically enable them to do what private sector companies are doing with their proprietary data all the time. I mean, it goes really to what Qlik as a company does fundamentally, what the product does, which is basically bringing together disparate data sources in order to find information, to find, to run analytics, to learn answers to questions. And yet, of course, all of these nonprofits have that same challenge, but they may not have the same technical abilities. And so you're helping them to get there by supporting them and giving them access to Qlik.
Exactly.
Do you think that in the future that this transition to the cloud is going to be something that is going to help these companies get more access to data like this? I mean, are there more data sources that are appearing now that we're in this cloud world?
Absolutely. I mean, there's data available from public sector, from governments, from the private sector is actually also there's a trend within the private sector to share its data to support various causes. And missions, because we all want to live in a world where everyone everywhere can thrive, right? And that's true of the private sector, public sector, nonprofits, you name it. So whatever resources that we can come to bear, competitive issues aside, obviously privacy issues aside, there's a lot of opportunity for the private sector to actually share their data with the nonprofit industry, and a lot of those projects we're actually fueling with our software.
Yeah. Now, another thing that you hinted at there that I want to kind of zoom in on next is you mentioned that there are a lot of areas beyond sustainability as well where data can help. Let's talk a little bit about that, because as we said, if a company is going to be great at ESG, they have to go beyond the environment. They also have to look at the social impacts of the decisions that they're making and the governance of the organization as a whole. And of course, governance of nonprofits is a whole different topic that is fraught with challenges. But let's talk about the social aspects, because of course that is a huge topic for everyone these days. How can data help organizations to address some of the social inequalities that we have?
Yeah, and that's a really fascinating space as well, where we're seeing a lot of advancements with the use of data. Mm-hmm. And it's no different than the environmental kind of applications that we're seeing, in that to address diversity, equity, inclusion, for example, is kind of the best way to do so is to bring data from a variety of systems together so you can understand the dynamics within an organization and how not only can you move the needle on maybe some diversity statistics or hiring statistics, for example, but actually how can that impact your bottom line? And so an example of that would be, of course, organizations have their HR systems, right? Like, whatever they might choose to use, and that reports, obviously, information with regards to a company's workforce. But you can't just stop there, because you can't just look at diversity as a statistic and say, we're going to hire more X, right? That's not going to get the job done. What's going to get the job done is understanding where you're at today, and actually combining that with information with regards to, well, what do my attrition rates look like, or my retention rates look like? Are my employees happy? Are they staying here and building careers? Are they progressing in their career journey through the organization? And that's a different view of data, some of it financial, quite honestly, in terms of like what you have to pay to actually go out and recruit new employees, right? So when you bring all of these data sets together and you create a more comprehensive view of how do we want to be the best, most innovative, most diverse and inclusive organization we can be to service our customers in the best way, the sources of data to answer that question come from a variety of different sources, including like survey data, for example. And you can't do that in spreadsheets. You can't do that by just looking at one report coming out of your HR system or one report coming out of the way you surveyed your employees. You have to bring that information together. And that's what we're working on with our customers, is how can you bring all that information together in one place, not just look at setting targets and trying to achieve those targets and not understanding how to do so, but how does it really impact your bottom line? And when you can do that, your entire workforce can get behind it, because you know that you're making these decisions not to check a box, but to make your organization better and build more careers and better careers for your employees that work for you. So, it's the same type of thing as the environmental data. It's all about kind of bringing all the information together from a variety of different sources and using that information, again, not to check the box, not to report externally and answer some framework or regulation, but to actually improve your business and improve, obviously, the satisfaction with the folks that work at your company.
So given that, unfortunately, many organizations have sort of a cobbler's step your children kind of problem, right? Where, a company will do a good job of something for their customers, but maybe they don't do a good job internally. And I don't want you to, spill the beans on everything internally. But tell me a little bit about how Qlik internally is trying to support diversity efforts.
Yeah. And I love this example because I do believe that we do drink our own champagne, right? We have several folks across the organization that actually use our software to manage these types of things within our business. And it's a great partnership between, like, say, our HR executives, our financial teams, our DE&I, folks, and we come together, and because we have kind of the data as the foundation, we can have the real conversations about where we want to go as an organization. And the beautiful thing is that we actually kind of anonymize all this data. Well, one, we report it externally ourselves, right? We're very transparent about that. But we anonymize the data and share this out as examples that our customers can use as a template, for example. Oh, that's what a DEIB scorecard looks like. That looks great. maybe I might actually use something similar within my organization. So we're not only trying to move the needle ourselves, but trying to turn this knowledge into assets that we can actually deliver to those that want to solve the same problems.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I think it's it's also nice to be transparent about sort of where you are and where you want to be.
Right.
When it comes to all of these things, though, I have to say, I think that so many people are so scared of being seen to doing a bad job that they're afraid to actually admit the job that they're doing, or even look at what they're doing. But with data and with proper analytics, I think that we can actually get a better understanding of where we are, whether it's on environmental issues, on corporate governance, or on social issues, and then try to figure out how to address those. It's all about being honest, whether it's internally with management, or with a nonprofit, or with government, or with the public, about what you're actually doing, where you're falling short, where you need to work, and where you need to go. And I think that all of this comes down to data, which again is maybe not the direction you thought this conversation was going to go, because often when you talk to companies about ESG, what you'll get is a lot of kind of meaningless numbers, or sort of green leaves and greenwashing and stuff. You won't get as much honesty, you won't get as much talk about data, and I think that that's really important. And the other thing that I really like here is that you've been with Qlik for a long time, and you've had a chance to deliver this and to actually try to make an impact internally. Tell me a little bit more about the impact that you personally have had on Qlik.
Oh, wow.
Surprise question.
That is a surprise question. Yeah, so as I said, I've been here at Qlik for 15 years out of the 30-year history. And there are some that would say that I bleed green. I mean, I see every day, I get emails and thank you notes from the organizations that we support, to employees that either join our company or maybe retire from our company and actually say, thank you. This was one of the best parts of Qlik for me, right? So from my satisfaction, I mean, I just feel very honored to have the role that I have, because Qlik is in a unique position. Not only can we be a good, sustainable business ourselves, but we have the power of where we sit in this ecosystem to leverage data and analytics, and now obviously the capabilities of AI and machine learning to help the world be a better place. And we really mean that, and we really believe it. And it's, again, not just a checkbox for us. It's not just a group of folks working for a separate foundation or something like that. I have a very small team and rely on the entire set of colleagues from across the organization to support this kind of work. And everybody finds meaning in that. And so, my impact at Qlik, I'd like to, it's impacted me probably more than I've impacted the organization, but I really feel that we have this unique opportunity right now to really set a great trajectory for kind of everyone in society, and data is going to play a very key role in that. You can't manage what you can't measure, and we sit right at the crux of that.
Absolutely, and I would like to challenge folks who are watching this too. Look at your organizations, and if what's happening is more noise than substance, try to have this kind of impact. Try to get a better understanding of the reality of the company's environmental impact, of the company's diversity, equity, and inclusion, the company's governance, and try to be honest about those things, and be honest and try to push things forward. Because we can't just pretend that these problems are going to go away. We have to drive them forward and make them go away through the kind of effort, the sustained effort that people are making in these organizations. So where can people go and learn more about Qlik's efforts on all of these fronts?
Yeah, so you can go to qlik.com, and there's several resources available on our website, including a blog that we write frequently and actually talk about some of these case studies and some of these examples. And then the Qlik.org website as well. So www.qlik.org, you can find a lot of these resources, as well as the demos that I mentioned and all of that. But we try to push out as much content as we can. Again, after kind of learning what we learn by, implementing these programs at our business, we want to share them with our customers so that they can actually learn and go forward with their mission as well.
Well, thank you so much, Julie. It's been really wonderful to learn from you and to see how you're actually doing this in practice. If you've enjoyed this, please check out our website, gestaltit.com. Go to Gestalt IT Video on YouTube for more conversations like us. I promise some of them are technical, but I also promise that some of them are not. And for example, we talked quite a lot about the ethics of AI on our Utilizing AI podcast. And I'm going to continue to ask these questions whenever anybody in one of these companies will talk to me like you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.